So, another quick show of hands. Show of hands, how many people saw my podcast last week, the great cast about this wine?
Me.
Well, listen, you three are awesome.
Thank you.
But you're going to be bored because I'm going to tell the same story again. First of all, if you've never watched a Grapes and Gallery Grape Cast, you should check them out. They're not just me, they're also other people. And basically what the wine side of it is, what we've been doing is, I come in and try to sell Ann a wine every week, and she's like, well, let's just turn the camera on and see what happens, and that's what we do. So if you can't actually taste the wine yourself, it's a good chance to kind of see at least what we think about it, and for whatever that's worth. So, the M.A.N. Cabernet. A couple things about this. The reason that I picked this for a present, again, it's a cool wine, it's a bang for the buck, and it's got a fun story. It's not a really long story. The longer story is the story of South Africa, and just to give you like a 20-second version of it, if you're not familiar with South African wines, South African wines are actually quite good, and they've actually been in the business of making wine for a very, very long time, 1600s. But most of us probably don't even know about it now, or if we did, it's been the last 20 years that we've started to learn about it. And a lot of that has to do with apartheid, kind of the world boycotting and all of that kind of marred the name of their wine industry there a whole lot. But I think we're past that at this point. But basically, South Africa is, Cape Town is pretty much the very tip of Africa, off a little bit. And basically, what happened was it was a stop whenever you would be going at sea. Obviously, you have to stop and recoup and all this. So while they were there, we're like, oh, let's plant some vines. It's a gentleman, and I'm going to pronounce his name wrong, but Jan van Beek or something like that. He is the reason that they did it, and what he was actually saying was, A, we want to have more wine here, and B, they thought wine would help with scurvy, and there was a whole lot of scurvy at the time, so you can thank scurvy for this amazing wine you're about to drink. What really happened was, so they started growing wine there, and they grew a whole lot of wine there, and then it completely got out of control, and then there was a problem with the price of wine getting way too cheap. Basically, the wine that they were planting were really, really high-yielding wines, and at one point, if you ever read about the Lake of Wine, that occurred in South Africa. That's where basically there was so much white wine that was produced, they started just pouring it out into lakes, and it's kind of a huge... So can you imagine having too much wine? So the government got involved and had a new system of really controlling that. So once the government got involved, it had very strict laws about how much you could grow, the yields, and a lot of the excess wine actually started being used for like fortified wines, which basically lasts forever. You put liquor in it. Also helps a lot with scurvy. But anyways, so that's the quick story of South Africa wines. But again, at this point, don't be afraid to grab a South African wine and give it a chance. They're doing some fantastic stuff. And one other kind of podcast, Grape Cast, I'm not sure what we called it at the time, but I actually was lucky enough to have Ernie Els, not Ernie Els, but you do know Ernie Els the golfer? Yeah. Okay, so Ernie Els the golfer, he is South African, and he has his own winery in South Africa, but he doesn't make the wine, obviously. He has a winemaker named Louis Strydom who has made his wine forever, for the 20 years they've been in business. But I was lucky enough to have him in my car because we did a really nice wine tasting in Aiken about a month and a half ago. Yeah, so that's what we're getting to. But yeah, absolutely. It was a very humbling, exciting experience. I picked the guy's brain the entire day long, as you can imagine. No stone was unturned. And what we actually did halfway through the day was one of my accounts in Aiken, since I couldn't make it to Columbia, we had 2 bottles of their wine here and 2 bottles of wine in Aiken. We sat down in front of the podcast, and Anna Keeley got a chance to drink his wine and pick his brain. So very, very cool. So I guess the end of that story was, if you haven't had South African wines, please try this one. And then beyond that, don't be afraid of them because they're actually quite delicious and doing big things. As far as the fun story that you can actually remember that's helpful is that it's called M.A.N. And the reason it's called M.A.N. is basically, picture this. You're a fella, and you got 2 buddies, and this is what you want to do. It's not hard. I'm a fella. I can picture this. And you got 2 buddies, and you guys want to go out and start your own winery. And it's probably going to cost you a whole lot of money and a lot of late nights, and all you're going to do is make alcohol. How do you get it by the wives? This is what you do. You name the wine after them. So M.A.N. actually has nothing to do with men. It's Marie, Annette, and Nikki, the 3 guys' wives, who were gracious enough to let them start a winery. So that's what it is. Anyways, this is the Cabernet, and it's coming around, and y'all enjoy it.
Good talk. Good talk.